show up on the video. Forgot to hit the start streaming button. I had too many things open here.
Oh God.
So we're okay now. So just to recap as a beginning, we are going to do a book review this morning. Vivek is going to do one called The Chimp Paradox. So we are missing one of our regulars this morning. David is unable to join us due to a business commitment. And so, Vivek, you might like to introduce yourself first, and then we can move right into your presentation.
It's actually part of my presentation. So yeah, so uh, I would rather let Fred, because we started live happened a bit late. So
Yeah, if you want to
introductions again.
reintroduce yourself, Fred.
I can do that. Practice makes perfect. I'm Fred Jones, the creator of Our Future Leaders, where over the years we've discovered various approaches that can assist young people to gain skills like communication and leadership skills that help them become the leaders that our world needs, particularly in this rapidly changing world. And I'm located near Victoria on Vancouver Island, British Columbia, near Lowell, and I'm happy to be here because, as usual, it's another lovely day. Always nice to join you.
And it's lovely to have you, and it is a lovely day. I walked Dallas Road this morning. It was so foggy, you could hardly see the person walking next to you. But it's lovely now. And I would like to acknowledge that Javita is out in YouTube land. She says, hello, everyone. Good morning. Good morning to you, Javita. So, Vivek, if you would like to begin, we know that this is probably going to take about 30 minutes for part one of his book review. Yeah, there we go.
Namaste. My name is Vivekanand. People call me Vivek. I believe in living a simple life. I believe in thinking differently. I am proud to share my belief with Steve Jobs and Leonardo da Vinci, who said simplicity is the ultimate in sophistication. I aim to bring time-tested wisdom and happiness together into your business and life by unifying, simplifying, amplifying simple technology and tools. I achieve this by developing software solutions as necessary. Today's agenda is I shall show you a brief intro, then we shall have a very brief discussion, and then I shall go into the main topic for today. In other words, this presentation is broken into multiple chunks so that the panel members can say a few words before we move on to the next chunk. This also means I expect the panel members to pay attention and not fall asleep because I'll ask you questions. Only joking. Let me begin. Now, before I proceed further, let me answer the question, why am I doing this? As you may already know, Unify, Simplify, Amplify Life is my tagline. So by studying and reviewing work by inspirational people, I hope to inspire you all, especially when we are in a lockdown situation due to COVID. It makes sense to to understand ourselves so that we can adapt to the new realities in the world. Otherwise, we run the risk of losing control to our inner chimps. I'll talk about it. Today, I'm reviewing a book, The Chimp Paradox, by a professor, Dr. Steve Peters. Let us first get to know a bit more about this professor. From his biography, Professor Steve Peters is a consultant psychiatrist and has worked in the clinical field of psychiatry for over 20 years. He specializes in optimizing the functioning of the mind and also holds degrees in mathematics and medicine. Professor Peters is a undergraduate dean at Sheffield University Medical School. He is also the psychology consultant for Liverpool Football Club and for the England football team. In this book, Professor Steve shares his phenomenally successful mind management program that helped Olympic gold medalists and senior managers alike to conquer their fears and operate with greater control, focus, and confidence. Let me read two testimonials that are there in the book by two multiple gold medalists in Olympics. Victoria Pendleton says, "I don't think I would have realized my potential without Steve." Sir Chris Hoy says, "Without Steve, I don't think I would have won gold in Athens in 2004. Reading this book will take you on a journey of self-discovery and development. By understanding and applying the concepts within it, you will not only improve the quality of your life, but also significantly increase your chances of being happy and successful in whatever you do. Here are some of the questions that would help when you follow the model that Professor Steve developed. How do I become the person that I would like to be? How do I become more organized and successful in what I do? How do I become a more effective leader? Why do I sometimes become so irrational in my thinking? I can't get on with my boss. The book is a treasure trove, and hence, to do any justice at all to the book, we need multiple parts. So this presentation is first part in a two-part study of this book. We begin with a chapter entitled The Psychological Mind. Then go on to the divided planet, where Professor Steve explains how our brain is structured and how it affects our psychology. Then he explains how we can guide ourselves to success and relationship of personality and mind. That is the mind map of part one in his book. In the book, he considers 7 different areas to work on: your inner mind, understanding and relating to others, communication, the world in which you live, your health, your success, your happiness. He says, to help you to understand and visualize these areas better, each will be represented by a planet, some of which have their own moons to stabilize them. The 7 planets and their moons come together to form the psychological universe within your head. So before I go further, I need to take a short break. So I'm going to stop the screen share and yeah, ask all of you here, what are your thoughts? You know, it's also a way of checking if you are still with me.
Well, the 7 moons and relating relating the planets to the brain. This is entirely new concept to me. So I'm looking forward to hearing
7
how he.
planets, not 7 planets and moons. Yeah.
Ah, so I'm looking forward to hearing how he sort of pulls that together.
Fred?
Yeah, I believe very strongly that the mind is so powerful and affects us in so many ways that it's very interesting that we're talking about this on success circles because it is very important. As much as you say, I want to do something, that's always easy. It's making it happen, which is difficult. And the mind has such an impact on us. That's why it's very interesting that you have your you unify, simplify, amplify life. Well, the mind is a big part of that. So it's interesting that you're presenting this, Vivek. Some people would say, why is he talking about this book? Well, it's very key to everything that we're trying to do here in any success circle. So I find it interesting so far that, there's another person who's got his point of view, and I'm interested in hearing about it.
And I might say that Javita says out there, very interesting concept, Vivek. So she's responding.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So, okay. I am starting the screen share again. Hope you all can see it.
Yes.
This is Professor Steve Peters giving his TED talk. I will put the link to this in the chat so that Lolan can put it on her website. And yeah, I'll go to the next slide. I'll paste that later. The human brain is complicated. So we will look at a simplified version. The 3 psychological brains in our model, the frontal, limbic, and parietal, are called the human, the chimp, and the computer. Within the chimp management model, 3 of these brains, frontal, limbic, and parietal, combine to form the psychological mind. And we will only look at these brains. The psychological mind also has a storage area for thoughts and behaviors called the computer, which is spread throughout the whole brain. The computer stores information that the chimp or human has put into it. It then uses this information to act for them in an automatic way, or it can serve as a reference point. In the TED talk, the professor uses this map of the brain. The frontal part of the brain is the human part of everyone. shown in yellow here. Limbic part, which is shown in white, is the chimp part. The computer that is mentioned is the parietal part of the brain shown in green in this diagram. When you were in the womb, two different brains, the frontal, the human, and limbic, chimp, an emotional machine, developed independently and then introduced themselves to each other by forming connections. The problem is that they found they were not in agreement about most things. Either of these two brains or beings could run your life for you, but they try to work together. And therein is the problem. He says, having a chimp is like owning a dog. You're not responsible for the nature of the dog, but you are responsible for managing it and keeping it well behaved. This is a very important point, and you should stop and think about this because it is crucial to your happiness and success in life. The chimp is an emotional machine that thinks independently from us. It is not good or bad, it is just a chimp. To reiterate, the chimp within your head is a separate entity to you. It was born when you were born, but actually has nothing to do with you as a human. It is simply part of your machinery. The chimp is the emotional machine that we all possess. It thinks independently from us and can make decisions. It offers emotional thoughts and feelings that can be very constructive or very destructive. When people have accidents that damage their frontal lobe, or where they have a disorder or illness affecting the frontal lobe, their personality alters. Effectively, the human part of the brain stops working, and the new personality that presents is the chimp. He says, the chimp can be your best friend and your worst enemy, even at the same time. This is the paradox. The title of the book is taken from this. Secret of success and happiness is you need to understand your human and not muddle up your human with your chimp. You need to understand how your chimp behaves and why it thinks and acts in the way that it does. One of the secrets of success and happiness is to learn to live with your chimp and not get bitten or attacked by it. That is the full mind map. The professor covered these concepts in his TED talk as well. So we have reached halfway mark, and let me take a short break. Uh, so I stop the screen share again. So what do you think, Loveland, so far?
Well, I've always been aware of the chimp brain. I never called it the chimp brain, but I've been aware that that's where your fear comes from,
Mm,
and a lot of your other emotions. And yeah, sometimes there's a war going on in your brain. I found that, like, you've got the emotional stuff, the fear stuff, and then you've got the logical stuff, and quite often they're in conflict. So I'm guessing where this is going to go for me is to figure out how to reconcile um, those two parts of your brain. So your logical brain should be able to sort of look at all those fears and kind of um, figure out what to do about them. And that's the only way I think that one can move forward is to reconcile those two parts. At least that's been my own experience and my own study of it. Yeah. But I really I kind of giggled. Your chimp is like a dog, and you are you. It's not you, and you, but you are responsible for managing it. I thought that was a really interesting way to put that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
what about you,
So
Fred?
yeah, if Fred has, yeah, go on. If you,
You want to hear my take on it, is that right?
Hmm.
As Lauren said, I think many of us are aware that there are various aspects of the brain and they get impacted many ways. Trauma is something that can impact us and we then react even without realizing what the trauma has affected. And that's probably what the professor is calling the chimp brain, which is another name, I think reptilian brain, lots of names for that, where we go back to survival. It's got a lot to do with, as Lolan said, fear. Why are we fearful? Well, it's partly due with survival.
yeah,
Well,
and
that's
in the
that's it.
next,
So it is impacted, and it's impacted different ways by different people, often because of the trauma that they've had in their lives. And that can impact you a lot and make you fearful. So yeah, it's interesting, another interesting concept or approach. The one thing I thought was, you don't want the chimp to bite you. And that sort of is a picture. Yeah, you don't want that brain to attack you, because sometimes it is, as he says, it can be very helpful, but it can also be very detrimental as well. So
yeah, and
interesting.
if the if the chimp part starts attacking you, no force in the world can help you.
Well, that's, I think, a lot of people who are addicts of some sort, you know, and that's what's happened to them, is that chimp brain is controlling them. So interesting, yeah, interesting approach.
So Vivek, Javita asked a question. She says, is contradiction, does it come from past experience? So
um,
I guess what she's asking is like, how does past experience impact what's going on with your chimp brain?
yeah, I guess past experience and so on. Even Fred was also talking about accidents or things like that that might have happened. But this book actually talks about, he gave the example of accidents and so on to illustrate the point that there are two people in your head already. And if one part gets affected in some way, then the other part will take over and you somehow continue living. So that's what is meant there. But anyway, let me proceed with the rest of the slides. Now, here is a mind map. It's very complex and probably you can't read it very well. So I'm going to zoom in and explain each part of it. So the divided planet is where the human and chimp live. You and your chimp typically have an uneasy relationship. that frequently involves compromise and conflict. Let us look at how chimp thinks. The chimp thinks with feelings. It is not always right, and it would change very quickly. Chimp relies heavily on impressions. We all worry about first impressions. It is the chimp which forms them.
Hmm.
The chimp thinks emotionally. It jumps to opinions. It thinks in very black and white. It is paranoid, often catastrophic, irrational, and makes emotive judgments. The professor tells a short story of Rob and his girlfriend. Rob is waiting for his girlfriend Sally at a cinema, and they have agreed to meet at 8:30. The time is now 9, and there is no sign of her. His chimp has got control and is on the warpath. His chimp thinks emotionally. It is late. She has not told me what's happening. I'm wasting my time. I may as well go into the cinema. She isn't worth it. She has let me down. She shouldn't do this to me. She has humiliated me. I am angry. I am upset. And so it goes on. Suddenly, Sally arrives, and before she has the chance to say anything, his chimp attacks. Why have you turned up late? You have made me look like a fool. What's the point of going in now? It's too late. And many more attacks. Then he stops, and Sally speaks. Someone has been knocked over just round the corner. I went to help, and they were using my mobile to get an ambulance and the police. I held the woman's hand as she lay on the floor. The ambulance came, and then I rushed to get here. I'm sorry. I couldn't let you know, but they were using my phone to get help. Now, Rob feels pretty bad, and his chimp changes its emotion to being remorseful, but the damage is done. So now let me get back to the mind map again. Humans begins to work out what is happening by first establishing the facts. They gather all the information available before beginning to make plans. Having gathered the facts, humans try to establish the truth and then base their beliefs on the truth. Here are some of the traits of logical thinking: evidence based, rational, in context, and with perspective, shades of gray, and balanced judgment. Both chimp and human are healthy with different interpretations of what is happening, how to deal with it. The professor gives two more examples: John and the parked car, and another example of Sarah's comment. I'm not going to go into that. You better buy the book. Now, that is the huge mind map about ways of thinking for the chimp and the human. You can compare the chimp thinking and human thinking here. You can see how different they are. But the professor says that both are necessary. Now, in my opinion, without emotions, you become just a robot. But if you only have emotions and no logical thinking, you become a total wreck. So you need a balance.
Hmm.
Human and chimp have different agendas. The main agenda of the chimp is to produce the next generation. A very close second agenda of the chimp is self-survival, which includes protecting itself from harm. If the typical chimp is really pushed, it is quite likely to protect the species rather than protect itself. This is the parental drive. Other objectives include establishing a territory. Human beings are very diverse about what they think or feel is their purpose in life. Having a purpose in life is something that humans thrive on. One of the main agendas of the human is to build a society where humans can live in harmony and in peace. The human looks for justice and structure. That is the agendas branch of the mind map. You can compare and contrast the chimp agenda to human agenda. As the human and chimp have different agendas, the way they operate also differs. The chimp operates with a jungle center that is based on instincts and drives. Body language plays a role while the chimp assesses the surroundings. The fight, flight, or freeze FFF response is arguably the most frequently used and most important instinct that our chimps possess. This FFF instinct is nature's automatic response when danger or perceived danger threatens. Fight is taking on the threat. Flight is running away from the threat. Freeze is keeping still and hoping the threat will go away and you won't be noticed. This can also be interpreted as avoiding. In our psychological mind, it is the chimp that works with the FFF response and offers this to the human. It's an offering. If you don't respond in some way by choosing one of the FFF options, reassuring the chimp, then your body will naturally release adrenaline. When this adrenaline is coupled with negative thoughts, your chimp will go into an anxiety state. Typical example would be walking into a room full of strangers. Apart from instincts, the chimp has strong drives. A drive is something that compels us to get up and do something. The chimp has powerful drives such as sex, dominance, food, security, parental, territorial, and the search for a troop. As drives are necessary for survival, their compelling nature makes them difficult to resist. In the jungle, the chimpanzee is not at the top of the food chain. So it needs to keep constant vigilance. There are always leopards about. It is aware that it is potentially in danger at any moment. Therefore, it relaxes only when it is fairly sure that it is safe. Almost always when it is among the troop. There are two different types of chimp, male and female. Both of these emotional machines within us have drives and instincts. In men, the right amygdala, the emotional center in the brain, has more right-handed brain connections. Whereas in women, the left amygdala has more left-sided brain connections. For survival of the species, the male chimp must be driven sexually, and the female must have strong maternal drive. The human male and human female are extremely similar, but are being influenced by the inner chimp, which is more typically male or female in character. The main female hormone, estrogen, functions to promote maternal drives, nesting instinct, and passivity. The main male hormone, testosterone, gives a high sex drive, aggression, and builds muscle. Here are some of the operational features of the Humanity Center: honesty, compassion, conscious. Law abiding are cornerstones for human. Self control is probably the biggest factor that marks us out from the chimpanzee. In the Stanford marshmallow experiment, preschool children were offered a marshmallow to eat, but told that if they waited, they would receive more at a later time. The children who delayed eating the marshmallow by managing their impulse for immediate gratification were found to be more successful in later life.
Hmm.
This is a comparison of jungle center and humanity center. There are two distinct personalities in your head, you and your chimp. They operate via two different brains, which are trying to work together. They may have similar personalities or they may be very different. If one of them gets control of the decision making, then this personality will dominate, and this is what you will present to the outside world. Recognizing the two different personalities will help you understand yourself better and also to manage each of them to get the best out of both. That is the full mind map of the divided planet chapter from the book. Now, the next part is how to manage your chimp, but I'd like to take a short break. My throat is.
So I notice Javita said back there, if you have had a bad experience in life, it tries to save you from any future occurrences. So she's got that right. That's the chimp brain. Um, One of the things that jumped out for me, and I guess it's a question, is where where does stress, I mean, when we think about business stress or stress with that's going on in the world around us right now, I'm guessing that stress is a major outcome of the chimp brain, and the mechanisms that we need to employ to overcome that stress is to do what we're doing partially right now. We're this the whole idea of using our human brain to learn more about the way things work. That's part of the human mechanism that helps to manage the fear and the stress. Anybody else sort of does that does that resonate for anybody else?
Well, what came to mind to me was sometimes you're interacting with someone and their reaction is very emotional
Mm.
and it's unexpected because you triggered something that you didn't realize. And that comes again, obviously, from the chimp brain. And in very, what also comes to mind was the recent debate where one person was trying to probably trigger the chimp brain of the other person. So that was a major challenge. And that's probably, if you think of it, is what the one individual was trying to do in that presidential debate to the other one. And I don't think he managed very well to trigger that chimp brain, because that's what I think was trying to happen. If you, so those are the sort of things that came to mind when we're talking. I'm thinking about times I'm speaking to someone and their reaction was unexpected. And that is often, I believe, the chimp brain operating. So that's interesting. So that was my fascination part of it.
And Javita is saying out there, chimp brain is a mechanism to save us. Yes, for sure. I also I resonated to the roles or what happens in the chimp, the jungle brain, or so the left and the right.
Jungle center, yeah.
Yeah, and the recognition that we all have both a masculine and a feminine reaction available to us. And in my coaching world, I learned to recognize left brain, right brain approaches. In fact, I think I remember doing a presentation about enacting the feminine in the business world. The feminine meaning the right brain. So we do have we all, whether we're men or women, we all have capacity for both. And of course, the desire would be to, again, managing and how to manage your is to recognize when which side of your brain is the most appropriate to bring forward.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
After covering the two different beings in your head and how they operate, it's easier to work with them. So let's look at how to manage your chimp. Let us begin by using a 3-step process. Step 1 is how to recognize who is in charge. The golden rule is that whenever you have feelings, thoughts, or behaviors that you do not want or welcome, then you are being hijacked by your chimp. Simple question is to begin with, do I want, and then finish the sentence. If the answer to that question is no, then you are in chimp mode. And if the answer is yes, then you are in human mode. Remember that chimp like to go on how they feel to decide on future actions, whereas humans tend to go on what needs to be done and also how they will feel at the end of the day when they look back on how they used their time. These are two very different approaches. Step two is understanding the fixed process of how the brain receives information. All information goes to the chimp first. The chimp then decides if there is anything to worry about. If there is no concern, then the chimp goes to sleep and hands over to the human. Chimp is more powerful and acts more quickly than the human. And you can't take the power off the chimp and make decisions. It's no use trying to control a chimp with willpower. It's not going to work. A chimpanzee is 5 times as strong as a human being. Similarly, your emotional chimp is 5 times stronger than you are. Don't try to control it, manage it. You need a management plan. Part of the problem is that most people don't realize that the chimp is merely making an offer and not a command. You do not have to follow your emotions. You have a choice. You can work on managing the chimp so that you can stop it making you feel bad and also harming others. You can't change the nature of your chimp, but you are responsible for managing it. You are totally responsible for your chimp and its actions. I mean, this is similar to what he talked about the dog. Now we are on to step 3. There are two main aspects to working with the chimp: nurturing the chimp and managing the chimp. They have to be addressed in that order: nurturing before managing. If you have a chimp that is well looked after by being nurtured and having all its needs met, then it's very likely that this happy little animal will not cause you any trouble. This makes managing it very easy. So rather than trying to change the chimp, you need to manage its emotions and impulses by recognizing what it needs and how it works. This means you may always experience thoughts and feelings from the chimp that you don't welcome. Your chimp will mature and it will learn some basic behaviors, but its drives remain the same. A crucial step in mind management is accepting that our chimp's fundamental drives do not change. There are 3 ways to manage your chimp. First is exercising the chimp. You take the chimp to a locked compound and not the supermarket. Once you and the chimp are in a locked compound, let the chimp loose. Allow the chimp to let it all out. Listen to the chimp for as long as it takes. And very importantly, don't comment. If you comment, you would be encouraging the chimp. So don't comment. Just listen very carefully. When the chimp has finished exercising, you will feel better and can then allow your chimp to go to sleep while you have a conversation that is human and calm. If we assume the chimp has exercised enough and is now in a place to receive information, we can address its fears and concerns by speaking to it. Using facts, truth, and logic, we can continue to calm the chimp down and reason with it. This reasoning by the human is called boxing the chimp.
Mhm.
This is also the second method. A third way to manage the chimp is to feed it bananas. These are things the chimp wants that are given either as a distraction or as a reward. The distraction banana can also be a way of occupying an agitated or impatient chimp when you have to pass time waiting for something. Giving rewards to your own chimp can be surprisingly powerful. It may take several repeat episodes of exercising the chimp for any one problem before you can box it. You may also need to keep putting the chimp back into its box several times for any one problem. But with practice and skill, the chimp will respond. And finally, the human can manage the situation.
Mm. So Vivek, I notice. Oh,
Chimps like to survive. Humans like to have a purpose. When we have a sense of purpose in life, it brings with it a sense of meaning, and this in turn leads to achievement, satisfaction, and well being. That is the full mind map that I covered so far. And that
mm,
brings me to the end of the presentation for today. This is part one of the two-part presentation. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel as well as Loveland's YouTube channel. You know, subscription is free. You don't have to pay anything. And hit the bell icon so that you can customize the notifications you get from the YouTube channels. Thank you for being with me today. Hope it has been helpful. Namaste.
Vivek,
so before we
oh,
move any further, I just want to also ask the question, throw it out that Javita is said. She wondered, is it the same as conscious and subconscious mind, only just using different terminology? Well, that's
I,
an interesting question.
I think so, more or less, yes.
Hmm.
Mhm. But um, you know, the author is a doctor. He's a medical
Mhm.
doctor. So and he talks about different regions of the brain and so on and so forth. So it is probably a bit of both. He later on goes on to say that I mean probably this is some studies that they have done. He says that when the chimp part of your brain is active, the blood goes to some parts of the brain. And when the human is thinking, blood goes to different parts of the brain. So he talks about, um, you need, he encourages you to put in have some practices which make the human part of the brain be more active most of the time. So, I mean, that's what he, in a way, that's what he's talking about. Let the chimp exercise, but then you have to box it and all that. So,
Hmm.
uh,
Fred,
Fred, you're
you're
mute.
muted.
Thought I had unmuted. Vivek, could you just give us a preview of what part 2 is? Just an overview. Just say, okay, next section is this, just so that people would say, oh, I'd
Yeah,
like
I
to make
would.
sure I attend that. Just what is it? Overview.
Yeah, I would be continuing I mean, I talked about the, I mean, I think I'll be talking more about the divided planet, he talks about how exactly you do these things and so on. So that's what I would be covering in the second
So it's
half.
more of how you can manage this. So it's
Yes.
more how to. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's good enough. Thank you.
It something came to my mind that and maybe I'm foreseeing where you're going next time. But it struck me as you were talking about, yes, you box it and you do all these things, and then you try to move on to, allow the human brain. I'm sorry, my phone is ringing, and I'm not going to answer it. I don't know why it's ringing. Anyway, so it struck me that even when we are experiencing emotions and we react to emotions, there uh, until we have some kind of language, the right kind of language, how can the human brain sort of deal with it or even exercise it or whatever? And I've noticed that with a lot of people. In fact, I heard somebody joke that certain people only recognize and understand two emotions. They only have two words: um, anger and fear. But there are all kinds of there's a whole range of other emotions that many of us don't have the language. And so that would be, I'm guessing that might be where he's going to go next time, is to recognize that, yes, yeah, those are the survival ones, but there are many more that and as we start to look at the left brain, right brain, we understand that there are many more words that um, bring out a better understanding. And as a human, if I can understand and bring out those I can get to the gray place if I can get beyond just you know fear and anger.
Yeah.
So
The professor also, and in other videos which I saw on YouTube, he talks about one of his students, in fact, the Olympic gold medalist. She she asked him, how do I murder this chimp? She wanted to get rid of the chimp. Then he said, no, you can't. You shouldn't. That chimp is actually a very powerful part of you. You need to nurture it and manage it, not kill it. So,
but there's another piece that jumps to my mind right now, and maybe this is more foreseeing where we're going next time. But when I think of people who suffer PTSD,
mhm,
um, it seems as though they're they have boxed all something up and have not brought it forward in such a way that they can sort of work it through.
Mm,
That's been my understanding of how PTSD is managed. Is I guess if you're in a certain circumstance where you've had a terrible, terrible experience,
mm.
in order to survive in the moment, that's what you have to do. Is you have to just box it up and move on to do whatever you need to do
Um,
to survive. But
but
then
then,
there comes a time when that boxed up stuff comes back to haunt you.
yeah, um, the boxing, I mean, as I mentioned in the mind map and all that, you can box the chimp only after you have allowed it to speak out its feelings and
Mm-hmm.
emotions, and
Mm-hmm.
you need to let it
Yeah.
flow first.
Yeah.
Only then you can box it, not before.
Yeah.
If you try to do that before, then you're asking for trouble, more trouble in the future.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I was thinking of a person I knew a long time ago. He actually lived in up one of the extreme northern communities, and he always used to talk about how he would walk out on the out on the land and just scream his lungs out.
Mm,
He would go somewhere where nobody could hear him, so that he was able to sort of expend his anger and
mm,
frustration, and then come back and find a way to deal with it. But it struck me, as I was just thinking about that. I guess that would be one way to deal with it, is just to let her all out.
yeah.
And possibly he was one of those people who didn't have the language,
Mm,
and wasn't able to identify or say, so he just let it all out. Yeah,
mhm.
was quite. He used to laugh at himself, actually. The fact that there were days he went out on the out um, on the tundra and just let her rip. So yeah. So let's see, what time is it? Where are we? Oh, we've gone our full hour. We're just almost over it. So um, before we close, any other parting comment, Fred, that you feel the need to make?
I would just reiterate that the
Yeah.
brain is so powerful. That is something, there's no harm in learning more we can learn about it, the
Hmm.
more effective we can be as a human being. So it's a great topic.
Hmm. Right on. Thank you, Fred. And thank you so much for your presentation, Vivek. And so I'm going to bring us to a close now with a reminder. It's important to do what you love with passion, and to say that we will have a continuation to part two next week. So bye for now and see you next week. And I need to do an alt.